Hello and welcome to Circle Time, the Early Years podcast. I'm Glenn Denny. Now, my guest on this edition has spent their entire career ensuring that children have the highest quality experiences in their care and learning, and is currently the operations manager, and so I've just found out project manager as well, for Ashbourne Day Nurseries. Welcome to the podcast, Jordan Tully.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Yeah, so project manager, we were just talking about like the expansion of Ashbourne as well. So yeah, you're adding new skills every day, I take it.
Yes. Obviously, as the group's growing, which is really exciting, we're learning more and more about the acquisition side of it. And as the setting grows, it's not just about the open settings anymore; it's about the new settings, which is really exciting. But I'm learning a lot about different types of timber and how different joinings go together. So yeah, a very different hat than I'm used to.
Definitely. As I say, welcome to my world as well. I've been learning an awful lot of that since I took on my new role. So, Jordan, we were going to talk about like viewing the setting through the child's eyes, weren't we? And it's something that possibly we live in an Instagram-ready world, and I don't know if it's been the same for you, that practitioners see something on Instagram or Pinterest and go, "Oh, we need to do this," but actually, is that how we should be viewing things?
I completely agree, and it's actually something that's been quite topical for myself, and I've spoken a lot about it on LinkedIn at the moment as well, and within the settings, because we know why we're here, and we also know what we're being judged on when an inspection comes around. You know, the question is, what is it like to attend this early year setting? So we are looking at that from the eyes of the child, and a lot of the time, I think sometimes we can forget that, and we need to take a minute to pause, reflect, review, and improve why we're doing things, and think, actually, is it for us, or did we do that because it looked nice? Did we do that because it was going to benefit the child, or did we do that because we saw someone else had done it? So it's about really reining it in and going back to basics and thinking, what are we doing and why?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, there was one little tip that's stuck with me like my entire very, very long career, that was given to me by my very first nursery manager, and I've never forgotten it. It was like, she said, once you set up a room for play, go back out, then come back in, but on your hands and knees. And I've actually used that tip with others as well, because
Couldn't agree more.
You're then actually seeing the room from the viewpoint of a child. And I think that's like, it's a crucial thing that I teach to other staff members as well over my career. It's like, go back out and come in again.
What I think is really important is I've actually heard you say that on a podcast before, when discussing, and at the time I think you related it back down to sort of getting down to the child's level, and also how we communicate. And I think it's so important, isn't it, that with regards to seeing it through their eyes, hearing it through their ears, experiencing it through them, if we're not getting down to see what they see, to hear what they hear, to experience what they're experiencing, can we say we're wholeheartedly doing it for the right reasons and with the best intentions and doing it with them in mind?
Probably not. No, because again, like I said at the start there, it's like we live off kind of Pinterest and the Instagram ready stuff. And actually, it's all very nice, but it's what are our children interested in? And I think, again, it's definitely focusing on the children at the very center of what we do, but our children, not somebody else's children that's posted their pictures on.
I completely agree. And I think sometimes that can be lost. And especially at the moment with the way that the recruitment is, a lot of places and a lot of settings in general, actually, big groups and small groups, independent settings, everyone's doing their best to make their nursery stand out, which is great. And if we're doing it for the right reasons, it's great to use platforms to share ideas, because we in the childcare sector should all have a common objective and a shared outcome for the best experiences for children, no matter what setting they attend. But sometimes it looks like it can become a bit of a competition. And actually, it's not about the shiny new things that we're seeing or the brightest buildings or anything like that. If it's not benefiting the children, if there's no clear sort of intention, implementation and impact, then why was it done? One of my regional managers, there's a quote that she always says, and she says, it's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. And she says, you can look at all these great things, but actually, if we're not seeing the intention behind these things, then why are we doing it?
No, 100% agree. It's like there should always be an intention. So, yeah, for example, what did I do today? I was actually on setup today, believe it or not. I went in early and I was setting up, and I deliberately had left benches. We'd had a parent event the previous day, and I'd set up some stuff on there, and I brought the magnifying glasses out with some books to go along with it, because I know at the moment our children are really interested in they're finding a lot of bugs and things in the garden. So I brought the magnifying glasses out with some encyclopedias, like some non-fiction books that they could look at. But also we've got tadpoles going on as well. So they brought the magnifying glasses came about, and that was my intention. I was like, I want them to go and explore. I want them to look closely, and that's what the impact became, because the impact was they were going, out and looking. So, it was noticing what the children were interested in.
And I think what's really great that you did there and what you've spoken about is you've extended their learning, but also actively involved them. Mm-hmm. And that is so important as well when we're thinking about what we're doing and why, and we're looking at the experience through the eyes of the child. We know that children will develop better when they are actively involved in their own learning. We talk about that when we talk about the benefits of child-led and free flow and all these things, and we know that helps build perseverance and motivation and verbal and interpersonal skills and self-esteem, and all these things are great for children's development and overall well-being and things like that. But if we're not actively involved in them and we're not putting them at the center of what we're doing and why, and understanding their experience, then I think sometimes things can get very easily lost.
Definitely. So for you, as kind of an operations manager, but somebody that can kind of go in, like, objectively walk into a setting, because it's not your setting as such. I know that I kind of get it as well, that you probably feel that they all are your settings.
Yeah.
You don't actively manage it on a day-to-day basis, but you do go in. What do you look for in terms of kind of benchmarks that you can understand that practitioners are putting the child's viewpoint across, what they're interested in, what they can see and what they're interested in? How can you kind of quantify that, as for want of a better expression?
No, completely. I think that it's a luxury. My job is a luxury, because when you look at sort of the requirements within a nursery setting, my job isn't essential. Not every nursery has a head of operations or any type of additional support above a nursery manager if you're a standalone setting. So I get to see my job as a real privilege, that when I go into the settings, I am there to be able to help give another pair of eyes and share my experiences. I think the main thing that I do that I love is that I get to understand the staff's knowledge, and I get to speak to staff about what they've done and why. I can ask them about their children and then try and see it from an outsider, exactly how essentially an inspector might see it on the day, because I don't know those children like they do. I know what that child is doing from what I'm seeing and what that practitioner is telling me about that child. Is it collaborative, the way that information matches what I'm seeing? And then we get to piece it together, and I get to coach them and give them fresh ideas. And where I do go from multiple sites, I get to share things that have worked, but also it's important, I believe, to share the lessons learned from the things that haven't worked as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's doing it as well. It's like building that community of practice as well, which is a really good, expression of building, with you've got a group of nurseries so you can share with each other. And likewise, the company I work for, we can do that. But it's not always that easy. But, if we're extending out, reaching out, that building that community is really, really valuable.
100%. And I think that these days, childcare is becoming such a topical thing in the news as well, with regards to, the funding and this and that. And I think these days we're actually having a light on us that is going to be really positive, because we're all united at the minute for the same reason. On platforms like LinkedIn, and there are obviously lots of other ones as well, but I'm seeing people sharing things and getting their voice heard, and it's been completely valuable to be able to see people's perspectives and hear what they do, and having a platform where it is just to share and learn has been really beneficial for me, because I've seen things on there and I've dropped a comment or I've sent a DM and I've said, wow, this has really helped me. I've never looked at it from this perspective, or you mentioned that you had this experience today. Tell me more, because I've not experienced this myself. Even with all the things I've done, I've never experienced this. I would love to learn from that, because it's not competitive. Of course, it's competitive in the sector with regards to everybody wants to get their FTEs increased and things like that. But when you look at it, take away the operational and the business side of it, it always comes back to the children, what we're doing and why. And I think we can all agree we have a shared outcome to provide the children with all the things they deserve, to be happy, to be healthy, to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's one of those things as well. I think the whole sector has been in a sort of state of flux. I mean, not just recently. I mean, we know very much, like you say, it's been in the news, and with funding being up and down, and also the huge crisis in recruitment, and it shows no sign of letting up, this thing. But it's that bit where if we're stronger together as well, then it will help. And again, like you say, everything comes down to, putting all those bits aside, the recruitment crisis, the funding crisis, all that. At the end of the day, it's down to the children. And I think that's where, you get those stronger practitioners that step up and go, I'm focused on this child, and this is what I'm about.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, we all have the same struggles, don't we? Whether we are a small group, a big group, or an independent setting, we've all got the same struggles, like you say, with things like recruitment being so topical. It is great to share ideas, because I wouldn't want to see any setting non-compliant, no matter what sort of brand you worked for, what umbrella you sat under. I wouldn't want to see that for anybody, because I would want to see the best happening for all children. So I think if you have something that works, great, let's share it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, returning back, we're kind of going off a little bit political there. Let's rein it back, But again, it's like viewing everything through the child's eyes. It is important. It's not just, like I say, just that simple bit of going out the room and coming back in again. But, there's more to it. How would you describe the process of viewing something through a child's eye?
So for us, it's about fully understanding and immersing ourselves into, if we were this child or a child that attended this setting, what would we, A, want to get out of coming here? And B, what are we actually getting out of coming here? Because we need to establish as well that there is sometimes a difference. So we don't always 100% get it right. And, we might have a clear intent of what we're trying to do, but we know that these little humans can take it in several different directions. And that's why we're there, sometimes the best resource, to extend it in whatever direction they go into. But being able to understand what a child is going to get out of coming to your setting. So, for example, our settings are named after their location. So we really speak to the managers and try and embed in them, what do you want a child to get out of coming to Ashbourne Day Nurseries at Leighton Buzzard? Why is it so special for them to come here? And we make all of our nurseries unique in the respect that they're bespoke to their geographical location and what their cohort of children might be. And we know that changes regularly. And this is why we allow individual nurseries to create their own curriculum based on the general demographic and cohort of children that are there. And we skillfully use our practitioners' opinions into forming that, and we actively involve them. We discuss it at a senior level. We discuss it with the regional staff, but we also discuss it in staff meetings. What do you want your children to achieve by coming here? Let's review our vision. Are we all actually on the same page now? What are we trying to achieve? And by actively involving the staff and the children, we're on the road to success, and we call it a journey to excellence.
Yeah. I think it's that bit as well. It's like you're saying, like, focusing on the children there and then. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Your cohort of children will change so often as well, not just within the school, like at the start of a school year, but also then through the school year. So, like you say, it is a journey that we're going on in terms of their sort of learning and development, and we'll constantly find ourselves at a crossroads and go, do we go straight ahead? Do we go left? Do we go right? Or even do we turn the car around and head backwards? Sometimes it's not a bad thing to do.
Couldn't agree more. Sometimes it is really important that as adults, we can recognize that children make mistakes sometimes, but are we as willing to accept that actually this hasn't gone exactly how I wanted it to? Yeah. Let's stop a minute. Let's go back to the drawing board and think, can we salvage this? Can we extend it and take it in a different direction? Or do we just need to start again? You know, as long as a lesson can be learned, then that's absolutely fine too.
I know that's kind of it's triggered a memory for me as well in a previous setting that I worked in, where we'd set up an activity, or I think we're setting up, one of our apprentices had set up an activity in a tough tray. She, to be fair to her, she hadn't spent long, because it was kind of a rule of ours: if you spend more than 5 minutes setting up a tough tray, you've overthought it.
Yeah,
you put stuff together, and she had something in her head that she wanted the children to do with it, but I was like, not necessarily. Don't be so rigid. And obviously then the children came along, and the children do what children do, and they think in a completely different way to us sometimes, and they took this activity in a completely different direction, and the practitioners, the apprentice rather, sat back going, what's going on? Do I stop this? And I'm like, what are they doing? Are they busy? And I think for her, it was, yes, she was an apprentice and she was new to it, but it was just nice that I was able to stand beside her and say, it's okay. Look, the children are still they're doing this, and they're doing this, and they're doing this, and they're getting this and this and this. It's not necessarily what you had planned, but that's the beauty of childcare, because, our early years children don't necessarily think the way we do, but we're building their thinking by providing something that they can then turn into what they're interested in.
Honestly, the way that you've just described that reminded me then of a memory too, and I couldn't help but share it. There's something that I was always told, and it was, if you want to hear about the problems of today, ask an adult, and the possibilities of tomorrow, ask a child. And we can look at something, and as you said, we could spend 5, 10, sometimes 20 minutes, I'm sure, if we really let them, set up this amazing opportunity that looks fantastic, that actually probably wouldn't want anyone to touch because it looks that good. And we will still, in my opinion, 9 times out of 10, never have thought about every possibility that activity or opportunity could go, or the direction that they could take it, because children see things so differently. And to what we might see a block, they see a farm. To what we see a pine cone, they see a tree that a dinosaur could be eaten from. There are so many things that they can see that we can't, because they are so open-ended, and we must not dull that imaginative spark. We need to really actively promote it and let them take it and run with it. And that's why I really believe that they can see complete possibilities that we can't.
You just said pine cone there, and it just actually triggered a memory from this week. That one of the children came up to me. I was out in the woods with them, and they came up to me with this pine cone, but it was this long bit of pine cone. It had been chewed away by so I think it was a bird or a squirrel or something, but there was just a little bit at the end. I said, and she held this up to me, and look at that. And I went, oh yeah, turn it upside down. It's a lion's tail. She went, no, the squirrels have been eating it. I'm like, okay, sorry about that. There's my imagination. But it was just like, you don't know what to expect from them. So it's that bit where you can't plan too deeply, but just deep enough, then see where the children take that.
And when I spoke previously about each setting being individual and bespoke, the answers you get from them children in those settings are also very, very different from what you would get in one to another. We have some settings that are in built up areas. We have some settings that are in villages, in towns, and we've got one that's on a farm. And the conversations, I've been there luckily at snack times, the conversations about where milk comes from is very different. A child who is maybe from a village setting, it comes from the co-op. But a child who was from one of our settings based on a farm, when a new child came in and said, milk's from the shop, that's where my mummy gets it from. This other little girl who was very, very intelligent, she very much was aware that milk came from the cow that was on the farm behind the nursery. So the answers you expect, you can't expect them actually, can you? And that's why we have to be completely aware that we need to step back sometimes and see it through their eyes, understand their individual experiences, because what they think and what they know and how they act is very much based on their individual experience in life and at nursery, and from their surroundings, their environment, what they're exposed to. So we're never going to fully understand that, because we only see a chunk of their life, although sometimes nursery feels like all of it. We only see their nursery side, and that's why we need to get as much information we can as as we do the settling in sessions and the all about me's, and when they start, we need to be finding out as much as we can from the parents and build those partnerships so we can see a all-rounded holistic view of this child to be able to understand their experiences so we can help them get to where they need to get to. So when they leave school, they have access to the same opportunities as every other child in their class.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. As well as kind of like that initial kind of building of partnerships bit, but it's that think you to once they're more established within the nursery kind of family as well. It's being flexible to change what you planned to that very moment. Like, for example, this morning, I had taken a group of children over to our allotment and we were looking at the tadpoles that are over there. And they were just fascinating. Like I said, they're taking the magnifying glasses and we were watching them. And then one of the team said, oh, one of the children brought a book in and they handed it over to me. And I just read the story of this frog, this little girl that had tadpoles, and they were watching it. And there was various bits of the frog life cycle within the book. And I said, oh, look, I wonder what our tadpoles are like. And like, they were fascinating. You could see them looking, see the little bumps on the back of the tadpole. And they were glued to this water. And it was like, that just happened there and then. But I could see them looking between the book and when I was reading it and the tadpoles. And I was like, they want to know a bit more. So let's investigate. So I just took that opportunity.
I don't know about you, but I really think as well, it's importantly that we actively involve the parents in this too. So they understand sometimes how a child's day is navigated a lot by them and how their day can vary. You know, we've had children come in to a setting and they've said, you know, mummy or daddy, I'm going to be doing this today. And when we pick them up, the parent says, oh, how's that been? And their day's been very different. And for us, we educate the parents at Ashbourne because we want them to know that that might have been what their child was going to do today, but they completely took control of their own learning and they extended it in a direction that maybe we didn't even think this opportunity could go. And they've had a great day. And although you think they may have just now made a car garage, we incorporated maths into that. We learn about the similarities and differences between their friends or what their mummies do for a job or how their home life very much differs from their friends. And it is important that parents are actively involved so they know what their child's doing or has done and how that links back to their development. Of course, they've had fun, but also by actually involving the parents, we can let the parents see it through the child's eyes too. So they can see how their child has developed today in such a fun way with all of these really exciting opportunities that they found themselves or we enabled them to do and that they really took it and ran with it.
Definitely. I think that it is important as well that we have parents on board with that, you know, and like we were talking about just before we started recording that I have in my setting, we have parent partnership, you know, like the open afternoons where our parents come in. And I think it's just really important that parents can also experience what their children are experiencing, yeah, on a daily basis. And it's really important that we get the parents on board to actually understand. It's like, well, it doesn't matter if, you know, your child's doing, you know, something completely different. It's okay. They're still learning from it. And we're experienced enough to guide them through that.
Yeah, and I think that they appreciate it when they do fully understand it. I think that at first, the stepping away from the formal planning as such and, you know, being completely paper-based and paperwork consumed, I think when we stepped away from that, that was quite a scary thing for parents because I think some of them thought that we were going to lose sight of their child and where they were at. But actually, I really try and promote to parents. I think the staff know them better than ever because they're spending that much more time with your child that they know now so much more because those little comments that may have been missed because they were writing a report or trying to get that check done really quickly for you to turn it around or to get XYZ done, that time they were spent bent over a clipboard, they're now spent sat on the floor usually getting very messy, hearing about your child's current likes and interests and supporting them by extending their learning. And actually, we know so much more now about that child.
Yeah, now that we don't have to sit and record, we actually retain more information than we would ever write down. And even the descriptions that we write down aren't necessarily what we're seeing. And it doesn't convey the enthusiasm we have for each individual child, which is so important. I know in previous settings as well, where I've had less and less paperwork to do, which has been brilliant. It's that bit where, an example I've used was our previous Ofsted inspection, where we were walking down to Forest School and we were talking to the inspectors about the children. They're like, "Oh, where's this child?" And we were describing where this child is in terms of his learning and development and everything else. And that's when it was like the inspectors went, "Yeah, you know your children. It's fine." They didn't ask to see any paperwork because, well, why would they? Because we knew our children we were describing, and they were watching as we ran our Forest School session, and it was all very child-led.
Fantastic.
That's how it should be.
I know me personally, I will definitely remember an experience more than an exact quote from a book I've read or from an article I've seen. I could tell you about something I've done. So for me, actually, getting down to a child's level and being fully immersed into that opportunity, that in that moment, right there and then, I am 10 times more likely to retain that information, like you said, and be able to take away with it and recall on that again and explain it to you. If you were to ask me about that child, again, like we've in this conversation, we've drawn back to some memories. Because if someone said to me, "Oh, this child, what have they done today?" Oh, you wouldn't believe the day I've had. I actually sat down with them and did X, Y, Z. And even the way you explain it, the people can see the passion just oozing through because you've had fun with them too. And I think that got lost along the way a little bit. But now we have no excuses not to know our children and not to be getting down with them and experiencing the nursery like they are.
Definitely. I think that's so important as well. It's like we did get so tied up with formal curriculums and things like that, that actually we were too busy trying to tick a box and actually play with the children. And that's the important bit. We need to be partners in their play.
Yeah, I agree. And I think obviously that's a completely separate topic, isn't it? What a curriculum is and things like that. But it's these big, scary things that I think people think are, oh my goodness, it's so much more than it is. When actually, just get down and play with them. Because as a head of operations, but also as someone that's worked my way up, I've been nursery manager. I've done the jobs. I've done a practitioner's job. No matter what, I actually sometimes love going to nurseries more than I like to do anything else because you're away from anything like the Excel spreadsheets or the meetings or the paperwork. And I get to go in and remember why you do the job because it's so much fun. And that's what we need to always make sure we're coming back to. We need to not lose the fun. We need to not lose our passion. I say to my staff when we're recruiting, we can teach them this, we can teach them that, but we can't teach someone to care. And someone that cares is so valuable. So let's not lose that. Let's all still remember why we're here. We're here for them. Let's think about what they're experiencing, what they're seeing, what they're hearing from us, and let's make it a great experience that they're going to thrive from.
Well, that is so important as well. And that kind of like pings sort of something with me that, when I I moved up to being now nursery manager. And one of the key things I want to do with my role is I'm not going to be completely office based. I don't want to be. I will do my admin when I need to. But actually, I want to be out there. I want to be there with my team. But I want to be, most importantly, with the children. I want to know what the children who come to my setting are interested in, what is being provided for them, and what can we provide? What do we need for these children? And that's so important that, if I'm seen to be doing that, then my team are going to be doing that as well. Because if they see me in there, engaged with the children, in their play, when I'm needed, that's the important thing as well. When I'm needed by the children to be in their play, then my team will be, and they do.
You cannot teach that as well. You have to experience it. I just quickly will refer back to, because what you said really resonated with me. At the time, I maybe didn't realize how fortunate I was, because it was a very hard time, as we know, with recruitment and things like that. But I was very, very lucky to get an inspection. Before I stepped up and progressed, I had an inspection. And I was fortunate enough to get a grading of outstanding. Myself, the setting, the practitioners, my senior team, everyone had worked so hard, and I believe it was a real accurate reflection of the work that went into it from everybody on every level. But I honestly do believe that a large percentage of what I was able to talk about on the day, what my team were able to talk about, my deputy manager, my assistant manager, myself as the nursery manager, we wouldn't have known if we hadn't been in a short staffed period of time. Because as the manager, I was in the numbers nearly every day. I was catching up on things in my own time, and I was doing the bits I needed to do whenever I could, because we were short staffed. We all know the recruitment struggles that nurseries have. This is, yes, it's tougher at the minute, but it's never been easy to find high quality practitioners, 10 to the dozen. So we wanted to make sure we had a staff team that was right, because we started this nursery, a dedicated baby nursery. So it was we wanted it to be exactly what we wanted from the get-go. And that obviously brought its challenges, and we wanted, of course, dedicated staff that wanted to work with under twos, which brings its own challenges. So I was lucky enough to be needed in the numbers nearly every day, because I knew exactly what those children did, what those children were feeling, what that child's like and interest was that day, what this parent did for a job, and how that might impact the child, whether they were at home a lot or whether they were working most days, why they were at nursery, what the parents wanted their child to achieve by coming to nursery. Was it education, or was it just childcare? And I can look back at that and say I'm so lucky that I was gifted that opportunity, because I knew everything that went on in my nursery.
I think that is important as well. I mean, like, for example, today, one of my team, I went out to go and speak to somebody else, and it was like, I just got to the edge of the building, and I was just out of my peripheral vision. I just spotted one of the team, and I jumped, and I went, "What are you doing there?" She went, "Oh, so-and-so's playing hide and seek with me." The two of us, we just stood and we watched this child, and she went, "I think he's given up the game. I might as well go and play with somebody else." But it was just so lovely that she knew this child needed that game of hide and seek, or whatever it was, chase. So she just immersed herself in it. And it's like, brilliant. This is what I love, that practitioners that aren't afraid to play and will take on that child's need at that very moment.
Yeah, and they're the ones that we need to be training up and upskilling, because they're so valuable to keep. Those that will, play the game longer than the child.
Absolutely, definitely. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for being part of the podcast. It's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And don't forget, you can join us for more podcasts at our website. It's circletimepodcast.co.uk.